So let's talk about something that's been mystified, misunderstood, and far too often oversimplified: how men fall in love. Because here's the truth: men don't fall in love the way the movies tell you, and they definitely don't fall in love just because you're the most beautiful woman in the room. Falling in love, for a man, is not about the moment you catch his eye. It's about the moments after that. It's not a spark, it's the slow burn. When it comes to understanding how men fall in love, one of the most common misconceptions is that it's all about physical attraction. That it's about the way she looks, the way she dresses, the way she walks into a room and catches his eye. While those things might grab his attention, they don't hold it. What truly makes a man fall in love, what roots that feeling and takes it from fleeting interest to real emotional commitment, is the experience he has in your presence. The way you make him feel, the emotional atmosphere you create, the little moments where he feels something asterisk with you asterisk that he doesn't feel with anyone else. That's where the real story begins. Physical attraction can start the spark, but it doesn't carry the weight of a relationship. That's why men can be incredibly drawn to someone physically and still not fall in love, because love isn't about appearances, it's about connection. It's about the micro experiences that add up over time, the small gestures, the way you laugh at his jokes, the way you challenge him to be better without tearing him down. It's about how he feels when he's around you, if he feels valued, seen, and safe, not just physically, but emotionally. He begins to associate you with those positive emotional states. Love, for men, is a layered process. It's not a lightning bolt moment, but rather a series of small moments stacked together. When he shares something personal and you don't flinch, when he's unsure of himself and you believe in him anyway, when he's tired of the world's pressure and you're the space he can just be asterisk. These emotional touch points leave a deeper impression than any physical trait ever could. That's how he begins to connect his emotions to your presence, and that connection is the seed of love. The truth is, people will forget what you wore, what you said, even how you looked on a certain day, but they will never forget how you made them feel. This is especially true for men, because they often carry unspoken expectations around what they should be: strong, composed, driven, unemotional. So when a man finds someone who makes it safe for him to not be those things all the time, who allows him to feel, express, and let go of the mask, he starts to lean in emotionally. That leaning in becomes a bond, one rooted in authenticity rather than performance. This is why trying to impress a man with looks alone, or trying to be the ideal woman, usually leads to short-lived interest, because it's not about being impressive, it's about being emotionally present. It's about creating space for meaningful connection, for shared vulnerability, for genuine support. When a man feels like he doesn't have to be perfect around you, that he can stumble and still be respected, that he can show up with his flaws and not be dismissed, it taps into something deep. It reminds him that love isn't something he earns by performing. It's something he experiences by connecting. The shift happens not when he says, "I want her," but when he realizes, "I feel better when I'm around her." That's a subtle but powerful difference. Desire is temporary, but emotional resonance, that's lasting. That's where love begins to form, and it's not loud. It's not grand gestures and fireworks. It's quiet. It's the conversations at midnight. It's how you handle disagreement with grace. It's the way you see through his bravado and ask him how he really is. These experiences speak louder than compliments or surface-level attraction. Men fall in love through the quality of the emotional experience, not the intensity of physical chemistry. That emotional experience includes how supported he feels, how much he trusts your intentions, how you respond when he's vulnerable, and whether he feels he can fully be himself. It's not about perfection. It's not about trying harder to please him. It's about showing up with emotional awareness, curiosity, and a sense of self-worth that invites him to do the same. A man doesn't fall in love just because a woman is impressive, successful, or physically attractive. He falls in love because of how he feels about himself when he's with her. This is one of the most important truths to understand about romantic connection. It's not just about the woman standing in front of him. It's about the emotional mirror she holds up to him. When a man feels seen, valued, and inspired in a woman's presence, he starts to emotionally invest. And when that investment grows, love begins to take root. What matters most is the emotional feedback loop he experiences when he's with you. Does he feel like more of a man? Does he feel understood without being judged? Does he feel important, capable, and safe to be his true self? Many women are taught to think that they need to do more, give more, say more, offer more, in order to make a man fall. But love, for men, is not about what they are given. It's about how they are made to feel in someone's presence. If he walks away from time spent with you feeling inspired, feeling capable, feeling respected, that emotional imprint stays with him. He may not even fully understand it at first, but he will start seeking out more of it. That's the emotional addiction that leads to attachment. It's not neediness. It's not manipulation. It's alignment between who he is and who he becomes when he's with you. When a man is around someone who brings out his warmth, his thoughtfulness, his leadership, or even just his peace, he notices that. He doesn't need her to praise him endlessly or make grand declarations. He notices when he's able to laugh freely, speak honestly, and take off the emotional armor that the world often demands he wear. When she creates a space where he doesn't feel like he's being evaluated or put to a test, he starts to associate her with emotional safety. And emotional safety is a rare, magnetic force. Once a man finds it, he doesn't want to lose it. Think about it this way. If a man feels inadequate, misunderstood, or small in your presence, even if you don't mean for that to happen, he won't stay. He may be polite, he may still text, but emotionally he'll start to distance himself. On the other hand, when he feels like a better version of himself around you, when he walks away from conversations with more clarity, more purpose, more hope, that's when his heart starts to open. He doesn't just enjoy your company. He starts to feel at home in it. It's not about boosting his ego or pretending he's perfect. It's about creating a space where he doesn't feel the need to pretend at all, where his dreams are respected, his emotions are heard, and his intentions are believed in. That doesn't mean he's always right, or that you shrink yourself to make him feel good. In fact, the opposite. He's drawn to a woman with her own fire, her own standards, her own presence, because when she chooses him, it means something. It wasn't given cheaply. It was earned through connection, not control. When a man begins to realize he likes himself more when he's around you, he becomes emotionally invested. That's when he starts to think about you when you're not around. That's when he talks about you to his friends. That's when he puts in the effort without being asked. Because you've become tied to something bigger than attraction, you've become tied to his identity, his self-worth, his vision for the kind of man he wants to be. And in that space, love doesn't just happen. It grows, it deepens. It becomes real respect without worship, affection without neediness, and connection without control. These are the ingredients that create a deeper emotional attachment in men. They don't fall in love with someone who idolizes them or clings to them out of fear of being alone. They fall for someone who sees their value but still holds her own, someone who doesn't need them but chooses them. Men are not looking for someone who loses herself in the relationship. They are drawn to someone who brings her full self into it. A woman who has her own boundaries, passions, and voice commands attention in a way that's lasting, not fleeting. When a man feels that a woman respects him, but also respects herself enough to speak her truth, it creates an equilibrium that inspires real love. When affection is given freely, but not desperately, it feels authentic. It doesn't come from a place of fear or strategy. It comes from presence and wholeness. That's what makes it magnetic. When a man senses that you are affectionate because you enjoy him, not because you're trying to fill a void or prove your worth, it allows him to trust you. He doesn't feel manipulated or pressured. He feels wanted, not needed. And the difference between those two is massive. Neediness creates pressure. It makes a man feel like he has to keep performing to stay valuable. But when affection is expressed with calm confidence, it draws him in. It tells him you're in control of your emotions and that you're choosing him from a place of clarity. Real connection happens when two people meet emotionally, not just romantically. It's when there is curiosity instead of assumption, patience instead of pressure, and openness instead of control. Control is fear disguised as love. When someone tries to shape a man into who she thinks he should be, or when she tries to steer the pace, the mood, the emotional rhythm of the relationship, it erodes connection. Control blocks intimacy. Connection, on the other hand, flows from allowing space for the other person to show up fully, flaws and all. It's about creating a space where both people are free to feel, explore, and grow. That's where emotional intimacy forms. Men are drawn to women who embody both softness and strength, who can speak with warmth but still say no when something doesn't sit right, who can support but not smother, who can care deeply but not collapse into the relationship and lose her individuality. That balance is rare, and it's what creates the kind of connection that deepens over time. It's not built in a rush. It's built in the way someone handles disappointment, the way she holds her standards with kindness, the way she listens without needing to dominate the conversation. Those small moments tell a man whether this is a relationship that will feed his soul or deplete it. What often surprises people is that men can sense desperation, even when it's hidden beneath sweetness or attentiveness. When affection comes with unspoken conditions, it creates emotional tension, but when it comes without attachment to outcome, when it's just real, grounded care, it becomes deeply attractive. Similarly, when a woman respects herself enough to walk away from what doesn't feel right, she earns a man's respect without ever demanding it. That kind of energy is powerful. It's the energy of someone who doesn't chase, but attracts, who doesn't control, but connects, and who doesn't perform, but shows up fully. The man who experiences this kind of dynamic starts to see the woman not just as a romantic option, but as a partner. He feels emotionally safe because he knows he's not being idolized or smothered. He knows he can be human, and that the connection doesn't require perfection. It just requires presence, respect, and mutual emotional integrity. That's the space where love starts to grow. And in that space, love doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like freedom. Men value what they earn, not what's freely handed to them. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's rooted in psychology and how emotional investment works. When someone invests time, energy, or effort into anything, a goal, a project, a person, they naturally become more emotionally attached to it. The investment creates value, For men, the same principle applies to relationships. If he has to work to win you, if he has to show up consistently to earn your attention and affection, he begins to assign more meaning to what's unfolding. It's not about making things hard just for the sake of difficulty, but about making sure you're not giving away commitment, time, and energy before he's shown up in ways that are meaningful and consistent. When something is given too easily, it often isn't appreciated, not because men are selfish, but because we are wired to value what takes effort. It's in the process of pursuing someone that a man begins to realize what he actually feels. When he's making plans, listening closely, remembering details, and navigating emotional moments, that's where he begins to connect deeply. He doesn't just value the woman for who she is. He values the journey he took to earn her trust, her time, and her heart. That journey is what builds the foundation for respect. Without that process, the relationship feels unbalanced, and the connection risks becoming shallow or one-sided. What often happens is that a woman meets a man she's genuinely interested in and starts giving too much too soon, her time, her attention, her energy, not out of weakness, but out of care. But when those things are given before a man has emotionally or practically shown he's invested, it sends a signal that he doesn't need to rise, step up, or match the effort. There's nothing to earn. And when there's nothing to earn, there's little motivation to commit. Men aren't inspired by what is simply handed to them. They're inspired by what feels earned, deserved, and mutually meaningful. This isn't about withholding love or being cold. It's about boundaries. It's about letting a man show his intentions through actions over time, because real love doesn't come from rushing in. It comes from two people discovering each other slowly, with mutual respect and consistent growth. A man who earns your time feels honored by it. A man who earns your trust protects it. A man who earns your love treasures it. But if he skips that journey, he may still enjoy the moment, but he won't feel the same emotional depth that comes from true pursuit. This is also why having standards is so powerful. Standards aren't walls, they are invitations. They tell a man, if you want to be close to me, this is what closeness looks like. This is how I need to be treated. This is how I love, and this is what I require in return. A man who is emotionally ready and genuinely interested will rise to meet those standards, not because he's being forced to, but because he wants to. Because he sees the value, he sees the opportunity, he sees the potential of what the two of you could build, and he doesn't want to lose it by being passive or inconsistent. When a man is allowed to invest, not just financially or with gifts, but with presence, effort, vulnerability, and consistency, he becomes emotionally bonded to the relationship. The value comes from the journey, the time he's spent thinking about you, the plans he's made, the adjustments he's committed to, the discomfort he's leaned into. All of these things make the connection feel earned. That's what moves him beyond liking you to loving you, because he didn't just receive something, he helped create it. And when someone helps build something meaningful, they'll fight to keep it. He falls in love by giving to you, not just receiving from you. This concept flips the common narrative that many people have about relationships. It's easy to assume that if you give more love, more time, more effort, you'll make someone fall in love with you. But in truth, it's the man's own emotional investment that deepens his attachment. The more a man gives to you from a place of authenticity, the more emotionally connected he becomes. He starts to feel responsible, not in a burdensome way, but in a meaningful way. When he sees that his words have impact, that his efforts make you smile, that his protection makes you feel safe, he begins to feel significant in your life, and that feeling of significance feeds Emotional bonding, men want to feel needed in a purposeful way, not needed out of desperation, but out of value. When a man feels he contributes something meaningful to your life, it elevates his sense of importance and deepens his sense of purpose within the relationship. This is how emotional roots start to form. It's not just about what you give him, your loyalty, your attention, your kindness, but about what he gets to contribute to you. That's why the healthiest and most lasting relationships aren't one-sided exchanges. They're co-creations of love built through mutual giving. And often, the turning point in a man's emotional journey is when he begins to see that what he gives you, his time, his support, his energy, matters. When a man invests, whether it's through small, daily acts or larger gestures, he starts to connect emotionally because he's building something. Humans are wired to care about what they put effort into. If you've ever worked hard for something, a career, a goal, a passion, you know how much more deeply you value it. The same is true in relationships. The more effort a man puts into being present, listening, making plans, supporting your dreams, and showing up for you emotionally, the more deeply he feels tethered to the connection. This is why it's important not to block a man's ability to give. Often with good intentions, people try to do everything themselves to show they're strong and low maintenance. But strength doesn't mean shutting someone out or not allowing them to show up for you. When you give someone the space to contribute, you give them the chance to invest. Letting a man do something kind for you, letting him comfort you in a hard moment, letting him support you through a challenge, it's not weakness. It's trust, it's vulnerability, and it creates emotional significance for him. What a man gives becomes part of his emotional blueprint for the relationship. He remembers the effort. He feels the weight of his own words. He starts to see himself as part of your world, not as a spectator, but as an active presence in your life. That active presence makes the love real for him, because it's not just about what he receives anymore. It's about what he's building. That building process creates ownership, care, and pride. It's the same principle that applies to any area of life. We value most what we help create. A relationship is no different, encouraging a man to give and receiving what he offers with grace and appreciation nurtures his emotional connection. It tells him he's seen, that his actions matter, and that his heart is welcomed. And when he feels that, he opens it more. That's where intimacy grows, not in what he takes, but in what he pours out and how it's received. That's when the relationship stops being something he enjoys and starts being something he cherishes. Because now it's not just about how you make him feel. It's also about how he feels about himself because of how much of himself he's given to you. Consistency, calm, and trust build the foundation for lasting love. While sparks and excitement can create the initial pull in a relationship, what truly holds a man's heart over time is the stability and emotional safety he finds in the connection. Men may be drawn to mystery or physical attraction at first, but they fall in love with reliability, with knowing that who you are doesn't shift dramatically depending on your mood, the situation, or his behavior. That sense of emotional consistency gives a man space to be vulnerable without fear of judgment or unexpected emotional chaos. It allows him to let down his guard and trust the bond he's building. Consistency doesn't mean being perfect or hiding your emotions. It means being emotionally reliable. It means showing up as the same person over time, not someone who swings wildly between affection and withdrawal. When a man sees that your warmth, honesty, and self-respect are stable traits, not tactics you use to manipulate his attention, He feels safe to show his own feelings. Emotional security is rare and powerful. It tells him this is a relationship where he doesn't have to always be on, doesn't have to play a role, doesn't have to second guess where he stands in that kind of environment. Calm becomes a natural byproduct. Not a forced calm that suppresses conflict or pretends everything is okay, but the kind of calm that stems from emotional maturity. When disagreements arise, calm allows both people to listen, to respond instead of react, to speak from a place of self-respect rather than ego or fear. A man who experiences this kind of emotional regulation begins to see the relationship as a place of peace rather than pressure. And for someone who may carry the weight of outside stress, career expectations, personal battles, unspoken emotional burdens, that kind of peace is invaluable. The world often teaches men to hold everything in, to appear strong even when they're breaking. But when a woman meets him with grace instead of reactivity, with curiosity instead of criticism, he begins to trust not just her, but the version of himself that shows up with her. That trust is what leads to deeper emotional risk. That's when he shares the things he usually hides. That's when he talks about his fears, his insecurities, his hopes for the future. And every time those moments are met with understanding and steadiness, the bond deepens. He realizes he doesn't just like her, he feels emotionally safe with her. And emotional safety is the foundation of true, lasting love. Trust doesn't happen because of time alone. It happens because of how time is used, through actions, not words, through repeated experiences where the other person proves they're not going to use vulnerability as a weapon or twist mistakes into long-term punishments. A man watches how you respond to his honesty. He notices if you listen with compassion or if you interrupt to defend yourself. He feels whether you lean in or pull away when he's hurting. All of those subtle moments teach him whether he can trust the relationship enough to fully invest his heart. Without consistency, he feels like he has to perform. Without calm, he braces for emotional explosions. Without trust, he stays half in and half out, protecting himself from disappointment. But when those three things are present, something shifts. He relaxes. He begins to feel like the relationship isn't another thing he has to manage. It's the place where he gets to recharge, to be real, to feel seen without needing to impress or entertain. That shift turns love from a fleeting emotion into a stable foundation. It becomes less about chasing a feeling and more about building a life with someone who feels like home. The kind of love that grows in this space isn't based on adrenaline or performance, but on truth, presence, and emotional security in the end. Understanding how men fall in love isn't about mastering a game, it's about mastering emotional presence. It's not about changing who you are to win someone over, but about creating the kind of connection that invites genuine, lasting intimacy. Men fall in love through emotional experiences, through how they feel in your presence and how deeply they are allowed to show up in yours. They fall for women who reflect their best selves back to them, not through flattery or sacrifice, but through grounded confidence, respect, and emotional consistency. They don't fall in love just because of what they receive, but because of what they give, and how that giving makes them feel significant and connected. When a man finds calm over chaos, trust over tension, and depth over drama, he doesn't just fall in love, he stays there. Real love isn't built on performance or pressure. It's built on presence and the kind of emotional alignment that makes both people feel safe, seen, and inspired to grow together.